Well, once again, thanks for being here, and we certainly appreciate your coverage of our football program. I'll wrap up Louisville first and then talk about Syracuse a little bit. Saturday was a great football game that we were very fortunate to win. It just felt like one of those games that whoever had the football last would end up winning it. And as much as I was disappointed that we gave up that two-play 85-yard drive, I remember looking at the clock thinking, at least we have enough time to go score. And I think some of the positives were any time that you win a fourth quarter one-score game, those are always very rewarding wins. I thought Sam and our offense and the response to 27-27 and then the response to 34-34. Those were two critical fourth quarter drives that we converted third downs and made plays when we had to. I think Louisville has an excellent offense. I thought in the second half on defense we settled down and got some stops in the third quarter. And our specialists were outstanding. Ivan Mora had a great day, and again, Nick Skiba just continues to be Nick Skiba. And, I kept, in the end of the game, thinking the Miami game, and then I'm like, but we have Skiba. That certainly played into how we played the last 2 minutes of the game, is to have a kicker like that and not wanting to leave time on the clock, and that's always difficult, of trying to score but not wanting to have time left. And when you have a kicker like Nick, it allows you to play that in such a way that we did and bleed the clock. The negatives were, we were up 27-17 in the fourth quarter and had the ball on offense and had a chance to put the game away, and we went 3 and out. And then, defensively, when you're up by 7 points, with 3 minutes left and they've got to go 85 yards, you'd like to think you can get a stop. So it wasn't perfect, it wasn't clean, but we found a way to win against a very good football team. For the first time all year, we had to play 60 minutes. And I thought our guys competed extremely hard. Again, the execution certainly wasn't always perfect, but, that's one of those wins that I think you look back, it already feels like a good win, and I think when the year's over, we'll look back and say that was a really good win against a very good football team. So turning the page, we now head up to Syracuse. For us to make noise in the ACC, we're going to have to be a really good road team. So we're 5 games into it and 4 at home and 7 left and 5 are on the road. And Syracuse, to me, is a very, very improved football team. I don't know if any team was hit harder by COVID and opt-outs and injuries and all that last year than Syracuse. The Syracuse team that we're about to go play Saturday, certainly doesn't resemble or look anything like the Syracuse team we played a year ago. They've found a quarterback. Schrader's a very good player. We looked at him out of high school. He's out of Charlotte, a good athlete. He already has 7 rushing touchdowns in the last 3 games, 3 rushing touchdowns against Florida State. He's got a very strong arm. Sean Tucker, the running back, is, I think, 3rd in the country and tops in the ACC in rushing. He is explosive. He can make you miss. He can run through arm tackles. He'll be one of the best running backs, if not the best running back that we maybe play all year. He is an excellent player, and he'd play for anybody in the conference and anybody in the country. They always have skill at receiver. I know they had a young man transfer, but they're still very talented at wideout. They always have been. But the biggest reason they're better is their offensive line. Their offensive line is greatly improved from a year ago. Last year they had to convert a fullback to O-line. They've got a legitimate offensive line, and now the fullback tight end is playing fullback tight end, and he's really, really good at doing that. So, they're averaging over 30 points a game, and they have changed their personality. When Dino got into the league, it was fast and tempo and throwing the ball all over the place. They have made a firm commitment to running the football, and they're very good at it. It's very well thought out schematically. They do some very unique things that tries to split the defense. And again, they've got an offensive line and a back, and then the quarterback can beat you with his feet and his arm. Defensively, they've got 2 excellent corners. They got a true freshman, Chestnut, that's playing at a really high level for them. Garrett Williams was a freshman All-American a year ago. Their linebackers are very active. All those guys are productive for them. And in the D-line, the Josh Black, I mean, it feels like he's been there forever. I think he's a 6th-year guy. But again, this is a very improved football team from a year ago, and their special teams are always some of the best in the league. So I know talking to Dino at Media Day, he liked his team and felt that they'd be back this year, and you can see why. And I think Dino always does a good job with his group. So this will be on the road in the Carrier Dome. It's always a tough place to play. This will be a very, very tough game for us. So with that, I'll take questions.
What's the value in, you just mentioned playing in the Carrier Dome, it's a tough place to play. What's the value in having the team that's been there each of the last 2 years?
Well, it's a little different. Last year there was no fans. So part of the Carrier Dome is the noise vibrates, and regardless of the size of the crowd, it's always a loud place. But we certainly had problems 2 years ago up there. That was one of those nightmare games that you never quite get over. We had guys go down, and we didn't handle the noise well, and we had guys that weren't ready to step up. I think that game, as much as any game since I've been here, represented our need to get depth. Because we had Rondell, Nasir, Nate Gillum all go down in that game. And Jamie went down too. Now Sam played a great game that day, but at other positions we weren't as prepared to go in there. So our guys have been there, but it's now with the crowd. It's always a tough place to play. It's a very unique environment. The lights are different. Catching punts, catching kicks, spatially, it's just a different setup.
David, you noticed a little more buzz on campus at all? I know you're kind of focused going to practice and all that, but have you noticed something with being 5-0, or do you not try to?
Oh, I mean, I'll give you the cliche answer of, 1 week at a time, 1 game at a time. But, there's certainly, you feel, and I think more than anything, it's just the student crowds we've had. I mean, it's like 3 games now that the crowds in the student section have been bigger. They seem bigger than what we traditionally get. And I think it was really cool when they sang happy birthday to Nick Skiba, and, to know that all those fans up there that are our kicker's birthday, there's a lot more engagement. Now, I'm in this building most of the time watching film. I think our players feel that. And, it's nice. I think they feel what they do is important. Part of the reason you have football at a place like Wake Forest is you want to add value to the campus life and exposure for the university and add value to the school. And I think right now our football program's doing that.
Justice says some of his teachers are hitting them up for tickets.
Mm-hmm.
That's good to hear, I guess. Right?
Yeah, it is very, very good to hear. So, yeah, it's exciting, and we only got 2 home games left. And but we've had, I thought that was a great crowd the other day. That was certainly a much better crowd than we had 2 years ago when we played Louisville. It just, there was just a buzz in the air, and it was a big-time football game.
Do you think there's more excitement because you guys are the highest ACC team ranked right now?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, the rankings things we don't get too into. I'm glad we're playing well, and that our students and our fans feel that that we're putting out a product that's worth supporting.
You mentioned just having 2 home games left and the importance of being a good road team. Is that a challenge that is potentially daunting for your team to know that they've got to go out on the road and do this week after week at this point?
I don't know if it's daunting. There's some things that are good about playing on the road. There's less distractions, and all the guys playing on the sideline certainly a lot cleaner, and you're not running into people as much. It's just football. When the season starts, I mean, you certainly like it when you have the 7 home games and 5 away. This year's a 6 and 6. But it's been, they'll be spaced out. The next 2 are on the road, but they're not consecutive weeks. So, I enjoy road games too. I think it's, certainly going up to UVA was a fun challenge, and this will be a fun challenge as well. And, as you know, I'm from Western New York, upstate New York, so it's always nice to get back up near home. And, I have a number of friends from the area that are coming over.
Dave, you mentioned the unique nature of the Carrier Dome itself, the lighting, the noise. How do you guys prepare for that, especially the lighting, the sightline situation? Does it change anything? Do you guys add anything to practice, or does it kind of just, it is what it is, take it as we get there?
Thank you, Bob McCreary. So we have the nicest, arguably the nicest indoor in the country. And, 5, 6 years ago, this was a harder problem. We can go in there and it's a white roof. We can play music and play crowd noise and have it vibrate. So, we'll practice inside a lot more this week. But yeah, I'd say 5 years ago, it was it was impossible to prepare for it. And because of the generosity of Bob McCreary and other donors and alumni that we're very fortunate to have here, it allows us, it's not exactly, but it's certainly a lot closer to what we're going to play in.
I was talking with Dino a couple weeks ago, and he mentioned how close the relationship he has with you. How did that relationship come about, and how often do you guys communicate during the season? Kind of notes or just talk about?
Well, I mean, we're competitors, but when he took over, when I left Bowling Green and came to Wake Forest and he took the job, we reached out to each other quite a bit. He'd asked me how I handled certain things there, and I wanted to see those players win, and I wanted to help Dino as much as I could. And he did a great job there. Took Bowling Green the 2 MAC championship games and won one. And then when he came in the league, we had already known each other. And you have the league meetings and media days, and we're in the same division. And we're friendly with each other. We know a lot of the same people. There's a number of players that I recruited that played for him, and then he hired them at Syracuse, or that I've hired them here. And he's a super nice guy. He's always fun to talk to. He's always got great stories. And, last year was tough for them and for us too. Not the COVID season, not everybody, usually in the NCAA, everything's the same. And last year, us, Syracuse, Duke, Virginia, we got our players back like a month later than everybody else. And then New York was so shut down, they had a lot of guys opt out, and, it was going to be really hard for them to have a good season last year. They had to deal with so many more restrictions than anybody else. And, so I know that was not a fun year for him, but he's got him playing a lot better. And, I think he's a coach that players enjoy playing for, and he's got him playing really hard. The other thing, it's the second year in the defensive system. He hired a new defensive coordinator a year ago, and to install a new defense during a COVID year that you don't have spring practice and you don't have the normal training camp, their defense is playing really well. It's well thought out, very disruptive, a lot of blitzing, twisting, some unconventional coverages. And basically everybody who played a year ago, because of their opt-outs, they played a bunch of young guys last year. And now all those guys are back and they're still freshmen. So I think they have the makings of a very good defense that already is very much improved.
We've heard coaches talk for a long time. It's not rocket science. Don't turn the ball over. Don't beat yourself with penalties. You guys do a really good job of minimizing those types of mistakes. And like I said, coaches talk about it, they emphasize it, but not everybody can do it. Why have you guys been successful at actually implementing that?
I would say this. I certainly sell it to I think it's very hard for us to ever win at Wake Forest unless we play that way. I think only once in our history have we ever got to a bowl with a negative turnover margin, and that was 2018. And so valuing the football, not turning it over, teaching techniques of trying to strip it and ball disruption and those type of things. I mean, that just has to be a way of life for us, and not beating ourselves. So, it's just something that we emphasize in our program. We make a big deal about, there's going to be penalties. I mean, you may have a face mask, or you may have a roughing the passer, and those type of things happen. But to me, minimizing the false starts, the offsides. I was more mad that we jumped twice on third down last week than any other penalty. Those to me are mental mistakes, lack of focus, lack of concentration. Some of the aggressive plays are going to happen. You don't want dirty or cheap, but Tyler Williams, I went back and watched the play, and I'll say this, it was the right call by the official. I should not have reacted the way I did. I went back and watched it, and my reaction to that was not appropriate. That was a good call. It was an aggressive play by Tyler, and those things happen. The offsides that we had twice on defense, those are the ones that'll kill you. And the kicking the ball out of bounds, and to me, the unforced errors, the preventable mistakes, are the penalty yardage that I, to me, most emphasize and most concerned with. And historically, we've done a good job with that. But then every now and then, we're not perfect, and we have a guy false start or jump off sides, and it's one of those things that when we do that, a lot of times we give up a first down or we don't make one.
When you bring a guy in, like Justice was talking about, chinning the ball, and how he was used to carrying it low and doing all kinds of things when he came in, and he had to learn that. How difficult is that to impress upon young guys when you first get them in, like, carry it this way, or all these things you talk about, details?
If they don't carry it the way we want, they are not going to play. Simple as that. If we can't trust them with the football, and they're not going to take care of it, they cannot play. And so, if a back is loose with the ball and he's swinging it, they don't play. And the same for receiver, tight end. You see what we have up there. The ball is in the program. The ball is the program, right? That's how we teach ball security. It's a day one meeting of spring. It's a day one meeting of fall camp. That's how we carry a football here, and there's a reason we do that. And we historically have been good at not fumbling it, but that is a non-negotiable technique that we teach here. And everybody, kick returners, punt returners, DBs, if they get a pick, and it's something that if they don't do it, Coach Hunter has them up downing or whatever afterwards. So we treat every time they don't carry the ball correctly like a fumble, because there was the potential for a fumble.
Dave, you've been 5-0 before. Does this feel different than before because of your experience, your depth, the schedule, the way it looks? I mean, does it feel different than the last time you got to 5-0?
I guess to me it feels a little bit more sustainable, and I think it's just because I feel we're a more balanced team. I think in 16 when we were 4-0, hey, can we score 20 points? And in 17 and 19, can we hold them to 30? And this one just feels like we don't have to necessarily be perfect on one side of the ball to win. And right now we have depth. As the season goes on, I'm sure we'll lose it. We've lost a little bit of depth already. But yeah, it feels more sustainable. But you look at the schedule, there's not a gimme there. We got to prepare and show up every week and chin the football and not jump off sides and have penalties. You certainly look at the schedule, and there's not one that you're just going to show up and win. So it's hard to win. It's really hard to win. And I think our players, especially the older guys, know that, appreciate it. And this is going to be a tough game. This really is. Syracuse has always played us tough. And 2 years ago, we were having a good season and they weren't, and we went up there and we weren't as focused as we needed to be. We had penalties, we turned the football over, And we came home, and that probably took away any chance we had of going to the Orange Bowl.
Yeah, you talk about less depth, and there's three guys that were normally on the depth chart the last few weeks that aren't today. Can you give us an update on the senior career, Kobe Davis, and I guess maybe Terrence Davis?
Nasir Greer is close. It was one of those decisions this week of he is close, but our best chance of keeping him healthy for the second half of the season is to not play him, get him to the bye week, and we're very optimistic then we'll have him for the rest of the year. Again, it hasn't been as quick as we've liked. Again, if this was a bowl game this week or we were playing for the ACC championship and this was the last game of the year, I think we could get him there. It's not worth risking it and potentially sacrificing the whole season. Kobe Davis, unfortunately, got hurt in the Virginia game and had season-ending surgery. So he is done for the year. And, Terrence Davis just never, ever recovered from, his injuries, and he will not be playing this year. So both him and Kobe had season-ending surgeries last week.
Can we go to Mark Larson on the Zoom from Spectrum News?
Hey, Mark, is this exciting for you? Thrill a minute, right?
Thank you for taking my question. First thing I want to say is John Johnson used to work for me, so you got a good one down there. Second thing I want to say is looking at your bio, I was born exactly one day before you. All right, enough of that. The third thing is, also in your bio, you started your coaching career at Albany, and you mentioned your Western New York roots. Can you talk about your Eastern New York roots and kind of, if you ever pictured yourself where you are today when you started out there?
Well, when you get into coaching, I think you buckle up and you're set for any adventure that may happen. But certainly early in my career, most of my time was spent in New York State and Pennsylvania. So my first GA job was for Bob Ford at the University at Albany. My first full-time coaching job was at the University of Buffalo. The first time I ever got fired, which every coach goes through, was at the University of Buffalo. And my first head job was at Fordham University. And so, in the first, 15 years, 16 years of my coaching career, about 9 or 10 of them were spent coaching in the state of New York, which is the state I grew up in and played my high school football in.
And Bob Ford is a legend as far as Albany goes, Albany football. Is there anything specific or special that you remember about him or anything you learned from him you still think about today? Just putting you on the spot.
No, he's just such a great man, and the impact that he's had on the profession. So he only had 2 or 3 full-time coaches. So we'd have 12 to 16 GAs. And the legacy and the history of all the coaches that started their career at Albany, it's a group that I'm proud to be associated with. And, I think Coach Ford took a lot of pride in that. But he was always upbeat, always energetic, one of those guys that just never had a bad day. And I'm still in touch with him. He reached out to me before the season, and he was a great mentor to myself and Dave Cohen, who's our defensive line coach on the staff, started with Coach Ford. And, Dave and I and 7 other coaches shared a house in Albany. And, that was my first introduction to college football coaching. And I think from Coach Ford, more than anything, I learned the work ethic that's required to do this. A lot of people would do that GA with him and decide they didn't want to coach because of the hours and the commitment. But, if you did a good job there, his recommendation was very influential in getting people's careers started.
Any chance he's coming out this week,
I don't believe so. No, I haven't talked to him since I think it was the summer he reached out.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We'll see you after.
Hey, you mentioned some frustration with the defense in the game against Louisville, and in the past, when the defense is broken, it was 59 points against Carolina, 62 against Louisville in the past couple years. having it be only 34 and having them have a pretty sustained middle portion of the game where they played well, that's some growth and some depth showing for that unit.
Absolutely. I mean, that was not our best defensive effort. And if you look back at this season, it might have been our worst, but it was still better than a lot of the other defenses we've put out there the last 2 years. So we're capable of playing better than that. I think Louisville's a really good offense. I think they're going to score a lot of points against a lot of people, but at times holding them to field goals. One of the drives on defense that I thought was really critical is when we had the turnover and we held them to a field goal. I mean, that was a huge, huge stop. So again, we're better on defense. The 2-play 85-yard drive is the one that just that was like, okay, I thought we were at a point we wouldn't do that. But other than that, I mean, if you hold that team to 27 points with the turnover, that's not a bad effort.
Coach, how important was it getting a hard-fought fourth-quarter game under your belt before going into the back half of the season?
Well, I mean, I'd like to have all the games to be over with, midway through the third quarter, but that's not going to happen. And that's been our MO here. I think we've played as many one-score games as anybody in the conference the last 3, 4, 5 years, and we've won, I want to say, like 2/3 of them. So that if we're going to have a good year, we're going to have to win close one-score games. That's always been our good years here, and I expect this week will be the same way. And if you look at the schedule, it's hard to imagine that most of these games. Somebody told me early in the year that, the people who do all the predictions in the computers, predicted like 7, 8, or 9 of our games would be one-score games. And I believe it. So I think what we just went through, buckle up, take your heart medicine, don't drink too much caffeine game day, because I think we're going to be through a lot of these.
Anything else, guys?
All right, thanks.